Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to Where the Road Rises. With me, your host, Eileen Curlin-Walsh. We're all excited at Channel 4 to bring you today's show on Plough's Council on Aging. Plough's has, of course, been a tremendous friend of Channel 4 over the years and is the jewel in the crown of our senior and caregiving services here in Payless and in the surrounding areas. We are just going to jump right into questions on Plough's, what it provides, what's new, what's upcoming, with the Executive Director, Ken Grunke.
Thank you so
Hello,
much. Hello,
Ken, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
You are so welcome. We're delighted to have you, and we first want to know a little about you, your background, how long you've been with Plough's, and what interested you in senior services.
Okay, so my travels kind of led me to Plough's, coming from a small farming community in Colgate, Wisconsin. And so there wasn't a lot going on in that particular rural area. And so my grandparents at the time had a huge role in raising us. And they had such a profound impact that I thought, gosh, there's got to be a way in which I can be more effective in giving back to them and to others of their age group. And it turns out that I found Dominican University in River Forest, and I found out through there that they had a Master's in Social Work program, and I decided to take on that with a focus on gerontology and the study of the aging.
Beautiful.
And then with that, I decided to get an internship, thankfully with Aging Care Connections, one of our sister agencies, organizations a little bit north that provide very similar services. And through that work, and also working for what is now Pillars Community Health and some other nonprofits, I really had a fundamental understanding of the impact of human services. I did do a little stint before Plough's at the West Suburban Chamber of Commerce and Industry as their executive director for a few years, but my love always brought me back to aging. And it just by chance, at the time, Don Chapman, my predecessor, was retiring. And so there was an opportunity, somebody invited me, and as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah, so. You had the experience both in gerontology as well as being an executive director.
Absolutely.
So the planets lined up.
Absolutely.
So let's first talk a little about Plough's in general. What is the Council on Aging? What is Plough's? What does it mean?
Yeah, so Plough's Council on Aging is a 501c3 human service nonprofit. We were founded in 1975, and we serve the Palos, Lamont, Orland, and Worth townships. Hence Plough's. There's 20 communities in there. We have about 77,000, that's probably more than that. That's a number from the 2010 census data. Older adults, 60 years of age and older, in those communities. We serve about 13,000 individuals. Now, this is not just older adults, and that's every year. Not just older adults, but obviously individuals, anybody calling us and requesting information regarding our particular services. We employ about 70 full-time and part-time employees, and we have the one location in Palos Heights.
It is the one.
Yeah, just the one location there. And we provide a myriad of comprehensive and complex services. It's almost a wraparound approach, so to speak, for aging. So,
okay, so let's talk about some of the basic services
wonderful.
that you that you provide at Plough's. One of them is meals.
Yes.
So why don't we start? Why don't we start there?
Great.
We'll talk about the meals that you might provide if someone, or even before we get to meals, let's talk about eligibility. Who can call Plough's? Who can access the services? And I know that's not a simple answer, but maybe let's just talk about the landscape of eligibility.
That's a great question. So anybody can call us. Anybody can reach out to us for information, resources, support, some guidance and direction. In terms of the specifics of the programs, it does depend a lot on asset and some income. Some of them, is open to any age group, is open to anybody participating, but majority of our services are income and asset based. Because we have so many different programs, and when we talk a little bit later maybe about benefits and advocacy department and some of those programs, each one of those is a different requirement in terms of eligibility. So we always advise individuals that when they do call PLOWS, that they speak with our intake specialist or another representative to be able to provide those specific details of what the eligibility requirements are.
Absolutely. And now, if you say that you have advisory groups, so if someone calls and they don't qualify, is it possible that you would help them get in touch with the services that they may be able to access, or private services? And that's the case. Am I getting the correct view that PLOWS is intended to fill the gaps in the safety net for those who are not able to afford the costs of the services that they need in their senior years?
So definitely, to the best of our ability, we try to fill those gaps. Now, we are very blessed to be able to work with so many community partners, stakeholders, other human service organizations and agencies, municipalities included in that, where a lot of people, even residents themselves, sometimes don't realize the resources that are available to them. Sometimes, to be quite frank, we don't recognize those resources enough. And so we want to tap into those community stakeholders and partners as much as possible, because they're the ones that create the safety net.
Yes.
They're the ones that help us fill those gaps. You know, we'll sometimes get a phone call from maybe a grandchild or a relative. They maybe have an aging parent in Illinois, but they live out of state. And they say, how do I connect with my loved one? How can you help when I'm not there? And these are some of the things that we will have to work with. Maybe this is information where we connect with the aging agency that relative in that state is connected with, and maybe provide them education that way about how we are assisting or could assist their older adult loved one.
Yes,
so,
and I'm sure you have to navigate legal requirements,
absolutely,
privacy needs. It's certainly not easy, but as you indicated, we do have such a large aging population.
Absolutely.
You talk about the number from 2010. I can tell you in my office, as the local law office, as our viewers know, the heightened number of 80 and 90-year-olds just this last couple of years is tremendous.
Yes.
So we have a tremendous aging population, and we want to make sure that we can all age gracefully and
absolutely,
beautifully and enjoy it. And these are the kind of services we need in place for our seniors and our caregivers.
Absolutely.
So let's get back now to the basic services. So meals, such a staple, important. As our seniors get a little bit older, maybe less able to go to the grocery store, they're maybe not accessing what their children are putting in the fridges. So what kind of service do you provide regarding food?
So right now we provide the home delivered meals program, and what this does is connects a volunteer to assigning on a route to deliver a meal once a day, 5 days a week. Sometimes, if additional meals are available, we can do Saturday meals. And then in addition to that, we potentially, depending upon the availability of meals, we could do 2 meals for individuals that are in need. But these go to older adults who, a lot of them have some sort of impairment, maybe a disability. It could be a social, physical. To your point, they cannot access nutritional food on their own, and there's no support system for them, and they really need that help. And the bonus of this particular program is it has an aspect of a benefits checkup or well-being checkup. So the volunteer doesn't just drop off a meal to an older adult at their home. They connect with the older adult. They check in with the older adult. The older adult might say, I have a medical appointment. I'm not going to be here tomorrow. Oh, what's going on with you? Oh, well, I'm going to go and have some surgery done. Okay, I'm going to share that with your caseworker and the folks over at PLOWS so that they're just aware of that. And basically the volunteer is a connector for us to the outside, and reporting some of that information that is very critical for us to make sure that we are supporting enough services, providing enough services to that individual and older adult. So.
And you mentioned two things, caseworkers and volunteers. So tell us in the fabric of PLOWS where the caseworkers come in and where volunteers have their role.
So for our caseworkers, so they basically work with a couple of different programs, case coordination, case management, and they will work with an older adult, a family who has an older adult in that home to be able to provide a care plan, essentially, to find out what are some of the issues that this particular older adult is going through, and how do we try to provide as much independence for them as possible. How can they stay relevant and independent in their home, in their community for as long as possible? And that care plan through that care coordinator, case manager, is really a tool and a map designed to be able to do that. We work with family supports. If they don't have family supports, we work with neighborhoods, we work with community providers, we work with home health providers and hospitals and skilled nursing facilities, and it just runs the gamut. But it really is designed to help them ensure their independence for as long as possible.
And stay in their home.
And stay in their home, absolutely.
I have just saw that keeping a senior in their home, if at all possible, through the services is so much better for them. They're so much happier and tremendous for the economy. It's
absolutely.
It's just a wonderful service in so many ways.
Absolutely.
And a little nice housekeeping can also be provided for them.
Yes, absolutely. So some of our programs, like the chore program, for example, provides that additional service. You know, maybe they can't do laundry as much as they were able to once do. Maybe it's just prep work for cooking, cleaning, as you mentioned. I mean, sometimes the minor things like chores, sometimes just simple dusting, it's a big task for some people based on their life changes, and so we provide some of that help for them. In the case for the chore program, there's a certain number of hours depending upon their need and based on the assessment that we can provide to them, and the same goes with the respite program as well. So.
The respite. I wanted to ask you about that, Ken, because we focus on caregivers here on Where the Road Rises. We recognize the deep need they have to be recognized, to get support, that it's very difficult, that they're often taking care of parents, children, spouses, and feeling a little crunched in the middle. So I was delighted to see that you also provide respite care for the caregivers. So
absolutely, absolutely. So as we know, caregiving, it's not something you necessarily prepare for, and one day you wake up and realize you're a caregiver, and then it becomes very overwhelming and you feel you're the only one, you know? Whereas our program, both with the respite program and our caregiver support program, these are programs designed to help those particular individuals regardless of their age. So if let's say a teen or a young adult, there was a statistic that came out from AARP lately about the number of millennials becoming caregivers. And it's an overwhelming number. It's 1 in every 8 a millennial is a caregiver. And we're seeing more and more relational families kind of coming together in the household and coming together to help support that. But when you have somebody like that who is looking for some guidance, some support, maybe a support group with others that they can connect with who are going through the same thing, these are services that this program particularly provides.
I love that. Now, if I'm looking now to determine the eligibility of the caregiver. So is the caregiver deemed eligible if their senior is eligible for services, or is this a matter of you connecting them to services that are not necessarily provided by PLOWS?
So a little bit of both. So in the case of if somebody is caring for an older adult, and that always has to be, you know, part of that equation, older adult loved one. But regardless of the age of that caregiver, we can provide a certain number of services, such as support groups, such as respite services. Let's say they just need a day out. Let's say they're going on a trip. If they're part of the sandwich generation, they may have younger children. They need to get away. And so that's where respite can step in. So those are some of the services we can provide. Anything above and beyond that, we do connect with other providers in the community to be able to provide those support.
Right.
So.
And it sounds like with 70 employees, members of staff, that you have a combination of professionals to slot in, if that's appropriate, and then also the volunteers. Tell me about your volunteer force. I think that's going to be interesting to our viewers, because if they are able to take care of themselves and retired, we often have people call us looking for volunteer opportunities.
Oh, great. And we know that volunteers, all human service organizations, and their volunteers are the lifeline of their organization. So we have over 120 volunteers that work in different capacities. The majority of those volunteers work with our home delivered meals. So these are folks that are dedicating a small period of time every week to be able to go on a route. There may be 8, 10, 12 clients that they stop by, do that well-being check, drop off the meal, check in, and report back to us. I have to give more of a spotlight to these volunteers. All volunteers are very incredible and relevant and amazing, but something about these volunteers is extraordinary. So when we had that one bad snowstorm, I think earlier this year in January, our office needed to close. It just wasn't safe for people. The volunteers for the Home Delivered Meals program all came out. They all came out, and they did what they needed to do, and they went to those homes, to those clients, and they provided that meal. And that, to me, really spoke so much about how much they really believe, not only in what they're doing, but the community, you know, and really connecting with these people who, if you think about an organization having to close, think about a home of an older adult who might be isolated, who might not have any support systems in their community, maybe not even a neighbor, etc., that suddenly they have to shut down. And how does that help? But yet these volunteers stepped in. So for 42 years, we continue to provide those services nonstop.
That's so heartwarming. And in these days of chaos and division, isn't it just wonderful to know that it's still a beautiful world? And there's far more loving people who care than those who are divisive. I love that.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about the advocacy that PLOWS provides for its seniors.
Great. So this is a great, our benefits advocacy program also has a number of amazing volunteers that work with individuals. But these are a lot of them are the state-run and federal provided programs, such as the food stamps, maybe the supplemental nutrition program, energy assistance. So for folks during the summer where they don't have air conditioning and it gets to be 100 degrees or whatnot and humid, they really need some sort of cooling and assistance, even financially, to keep, if they do even have air running or the fans on or whatever the case may be. The opposite happens in the winter. So for those, we don't want them to lose heat. And so if they're struggling with their bills, if we need to be able to provide them that financial support, we work through the Energy Assistance Program to be able to provide that. Nicor Gas is another company that provides incentives, and again, through our benefits advocacy program for such issues, such as, utilities. In addition to that, Medicare applications, Medicaid applications. So we did about 200 Medicaid applications last year, which is pretty extraordinary for us, and we anticipate that going up, This is not easy to navigate. These applications are cumbersome, overwhelming, and we have volunteers and staff in place to be able to help that individual, that older adult, and the family navigate through those application processes. So
that is, we know again from our work with seniors, are very difficult. It's full of pitfalls and a lengthy process.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm sure that's another lifeline. Absolutely. All right. So how are you funded, Ken? How does PLOWS provide for this many seniors who financially have to qualify? So where do you get your funding from?
So the majority of our funding comes through the federal government Administration on Community Living through the Older Americans Act, as well as through the State Department, Illinois Department on Aging. We work with a significant partner, our Area Agency on Aging by the state that we report to, who serves as a grantor. So the money gets funded through Age Options. and then we apply, and then they provide that financial support then to us to provide those programs. We've also had the benefit to receive some additional dollars through the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, through Oak Lawn, as well as through Cook County. United Way has really helped us out, and especially the funding that we receive through United Way goes to the safety net. So it's our abuse program, which we hopefully will be able to talk about a little bit, as well as the financial security, which is our benefits and advocacy services that I mentioned too, making sure people are financially sound to be able to move forward.
So unfortunately, we do have to acknowledge that occasionally there is financial abuse of our seniors' accounts who are not so well able to figure out what's going on, or who have appointed a family member or a friend, someone in their community to take care of their finances. So you have a little bit of a watchdog program for possible abuse also.
Absolutely. It's the Adult Protective Services, and this is one of the most sensitive programs that we offer on so many levels. First and foremost, because for those that are reporting the alleged abuse at the time, a lot of them want to remain anonymous, and they can. So I'm letting the community know that they can, because it is very difficult to be able to witness, let alone say I'm going to act on what I witness and observe and interpret as abuse, and I need to communicate that accordingly. So we have a set team of professionals in place that work with police departments, attorneys, the court systems, you name it, the school systems even, to be able to find ways in which to approach some of these cases, because they can be very, very challenging. Financial exploitation, as you mentioned, is unfortunately one of the largest growing forms of abuse right now surrounding older adults, and a lot of it is unintentional. It's perhaps somebody at the home that says, you know what, I've been going and getting your meals and going to the grocery store for weeks and weeks, and I deserve some money for reimbursement for gas mileage. And so they take that out of the funds. Well, technically that has not been decided by the older adult. And so this is when it gets a little bit sensitive, to be able to not only work with the victim, but also the alleged abuser, and be able to really have a conversation of what is happening. The unfortunate side is during caregiving, when a caregiver is just so overwhelmed, but they're so lost. They feel alone and isolated, and emotionally it gets just overwhelming for them. And so it comes out in a very negative way sometimes. And that's something that we hope we can curb and help out with through some of the programs I mentioned, like our caregiver program.
Yes. And I want our viewers to know that if you are helping a senior, if you are acting under power of attorney, if you are incurring expenses, you can be reimbursed. You can be compensated for your time, but everything has to be done according to the documents. Receipts have to be submitted, hours have to be submitted, and the document must permit that in the first place. So we're not saying that you have to work without compensation or reimbursement, but everything has to be done through the correct modes, not just to protect our seniors, but to protect you also, who have stepped in. We're so sensitive to the caregivers and the tremendous role they play in keeping our seniors in their home and giving them the tools that they need to work, but also protecting them and making sure that they know how to get reimbursed or compensated if that is the case, without it being the possibility or the fear that someone thinks that there is abuse or real abuse, as you have indicated happens. Ken, you have been with PLOWS now for 1.5 years. What have you seen? What are the trends? What are you finding calls for maybe more and more? What changes have you noticed? What are the needs of our seniors?
So we are definitely seeing a lot more, obviously, people growing older and staying in their own communities. So we know the statistic of 10,000 older adults turn, or baby boomers turn 65 years of age or older. That will go all the way till 2029. So, and statistically, in our community, we have in the southwest suburban Cook County area, our service area has the second largest number of older adults, 60 years of age and older, the second largest number of those 75 years of age and older, and the second largest number of older adults who are isolated. So we know that older adults are going to have more of an outreach effort. They're not going to be able to come to a physical facility or organization like PLOWS. First of all, public transit may not be available. They may not be able to drive themselves. They may not have support for that. So we're starting to realize we need to be out in the community a little bit more than we have been with some different programs. Our home delivered meals programs is definitely increasing. More and more folks need those nutritional meals delivered to their door because they cannot get those on their own. And caregiving. A lot of people are finding themselves in that caregiver role and becoming very, very overwhelming. From a macro level, we are finding we need to do this more, our work, with other human service providers. We can't do this alone anymore. Yes. And also for-profit entities, municipalities, you know, aging is everybody's business.
Yes.
And you are a participant, you're never an observer. And whether you're 5 years old or 50 years old, you have a role in aging. And that's the part that we hope that we can work with spiritual centers and churches and park districts and libraries and all of these folks to be able to say, we're in this together.
Yes,
so, you know.
and if we're lucky enough to avoid accident or injury,
right.
we're hopefully all going to be there one day.
Yeah.
So it's in all our best interest to take care of our seniors.
Absolutely. I'm 42 years old, and I'm already planning for my aging future.
Yeah. Well, you're very much in a skewed environment too, so you certainly know what to look out for, what to plan for. So I know from my conversations with Christine at your office, the wonderful Christine Sidith, that your phone never stops ringing.
Oh, yes.
So what are the typical questions? What's a typical call? What's the most frequent inquiry you get?
So a lot of times we'll get, I have a parent, an aging parent. I notice that they may have some memory loss. I notice maybe that they can't drive. I notice little things that they're noticing happens more frequently in the home. And so we will have to not only, of course, work with that family support or whoever ends up calling us, but also work with the older adult and reach out to them. Not only to be able to ensure that they're supported and safe in their own homes, but to also acknowledge that they have a right to choose, self-determination, you know? And that is a part that a lot of people in the community don't realize is we can do all the help we can provide or provide all the help we can and those services, but at the end of the day, if an older adult, based on assessment, is able to self-determine, they have a right to choose. And that becomes very sticky when you start involving other people in that life of an older adult. Yes. But a lot of it is these phone calls of crisis, you know. It's suddenly this has happened, you know, and now what do I do? And one of the messages we always try to communicate is to say, don't wait for a crisis moment. Prepare for your aging future. You know, ask the questions. You know, thank goodness for the invention of the internet. There's so many resources available. But become educated, ask questions, and just start preparing for an aging future. So
prepare for your parents' future and prepare for your own. And it's really never too early to get started,
not at all.
And particularly with the financial component. If we have that in place, it certainly is going to make a lot of these questions, needs, services a little bit easier.
Absolutely.
My next question for you, Ken, was challenges that you face, but maybe what you're saying is ultimately the numbers. Is that your greatest challenge, or what would you say it is?
I think one of the challenges is going to be keeping up with the increase. You know, again, we really looking at the data from the American Community Survey. We are seeing in this area, we are seeing older adults wanting to stay in their homes for as long as possible. And the longer they age, the more services at some point or support that they are going to need, which means that we need to be able to be responsive. Our caseworkers, for some of that care planning, as I mentioned, or that map that they help create, they'll take on anywhere from 125 to 135 cases in a year. And that's a lot because these cases aren't transactional. It's not, oh, I have this issue, draw me a plan, and I'm going to follow it, and suddenly I can move on as a caseworker. You know, you have to work with that individual over time, and sometimes those plans don't go the way that either party anticipated. And so you have to create a new plan, and so we will be seeing that. The other side of this, too, from a larger community perspective, is healthcare. Healthcare is changing drastically. You know, we started seeing from the financial industry mergers, now we're seeing it from the medical hospitals are merging. We are seeing a lot of different types of partnerships, new home health agencies popping up, managed care organizations through the state to manage Medicaid program. These are different entities that we were not prepared to necessarily work with, and so we're always trying to touch base with our contacts in those respective areas in the community to say, I know you're changing. How do we change with you? And so that way we can be more responsive to their needs and fill their gaps too.
Oh, and be preemptive and proactive.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's terrific. Healthcare, such a huge area we cover often here. Ken, you've talked a lot about how you, PLOWs, help the community. How can the community support you, help you in your efforts?
So we definitely rely on the generosity of folks through financial assistance and support, making donations, which they can through our website, and also just calling us and giving us a call. Also volunteers, even though I said we have over 120 volunteers,
you could use more.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we want to get into a situation where we have a backup of volunteers, because volunteers have lives and they go on vacation and they take breaks, and they may have their own situations that in which they're unable to fulfill their volunteer duty. And so we want to make sure not to have any breaking points or gaps in continuing that particular care. Assistive devices sometimes are very much needed. A walker, a cane, maybe it's a wheelchair. Incontinence supplies is something that people don't necessarily want to talk about, but it's something that we really see a demand from a lot of our clients. And so that's something we want to be able to provide to them. And of course, whether it's sponsoring our upcoming annual luncheon, or it's putting us in your estate planning or your will, we really would hope that you would be able to find a way to help support our mission.
I love that.
Yeah.
And let's talk about that upcoming luncheon, because it's for our volunteers.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
It's for older adults in the community who we consider rock stars, who have done nothing but volunteer over and over again, and really have been kind of a mentor, an inspiration, if you will. And we know they're out there, right? There's these silent giants, the ones that are too humble, and we really want the community to be able to recognize them. So yes, we give them a full spotlight. They grace the stage. We give them recognition. It's a full blown out event. We have over 200 people from the community attend, municipal leaders, legislators, you name it. So we definitely want folks to be able to nominate, which they can call our office to do, or sponsor if they'd like to do a sponsorship, or just attend. It's at Orland Chateau in Orland Park, and it's October 26th. It starts at 11:30 a.m. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful awards program and lunch. So,
well, I would love to sponsor. I'd love
to
attend.
Thank you.
I hope our viewers do too,
yes,
because those are tremendous services, and I know the community would want to help,
yes,
particularly those who have saw the value for their own loved ones. Yes. So, one last question before I ask you what this has taught you. I have noticed on Facebook at the library programs, so you've talked about these bedrock programs of what PLOWs is all about, but you do webinars and seminars and workshops and lectures on grief, loss, legal help. It seems there's a whole other contingent of ongoing programs as needs arise to meet in the community.
Absolutely. We really value our partners, as I mentioned, and we have some extreme partners that help us educate not only us but the community around specific topics. And so the Center for Disability and Elder Law, for example, do a wonderful program around estate planning for us. And it really helps the older adults because it's not a simple workshop that you just walk away from. Rather, they connect you with an attorney, pro bono, who's there, who can actually granted, you've brought the documents required, but to work with you on how to get started with this whole process. Sertoma Institute is another one that talks about mental illness, mental health, bereavement and grief. All of these different areas that sometimes people don't necessarily recognize that they're facing, but it's so necessary to be able to address in order to remain healthy and well. And we send our own staff there. I mean, these programs are not just for the community. We want to be able to participate, you know, and promote and represent health, you know, healthy aging. So
beautiful. I love it. And Ken, you've come full circle. You started off in the farm with a lot of influence by your beloved grandparents, and here you are now, only 42, but working with seniors, having studied gerontology, and now executive director of Plows. So what are your nuggets of wisdom? What have you learned from the seniors you've worked with? What have you learned about life? How have you grown as a person through your work with seniors?
So I would have to say that definitely older adults need to be seen and re-seen as valued members, not only of a community, but of an individual's future. You know, these are individuals that have paved the way, as I see it, have given so much, have sacrificed a lot for a lot of the current generations and generations moving forward. And there's something to be said about individuals who have continued, in a volunteer role even, continue to give so much of themselves and not require anything back. And so for that reason alone, we really need to pay more attention to older adults. The other part is aging is everyone's business. It really is, and society is going to have to wake up collectively and realize that they are a participant and not an observer in what is happening in our own communities. So for myself, you know, I'm just hoping that we can continue working with other partners, building a stronger safety net, as you so well put it, and how to strengthen that so we don't have folks, older adults or anybody for that matter, falling in the gaps. So
I love it. Valuing our seniors. That's exactly what this is all about. I love that. That's a perfect way for us to end our conversation. Viewers, if you need services, if you are a loved one or someone you know needs services, give Plows a call. They're right here in your own backyard, and as you just heard, a marvelous array of services for you. If you can volunteer, if you have some time, if you have some resources, give back to Plows also so that they can continue to provide these services. Allow all of us to grow old, to age gracefully, as we said, with dignity. And what was it Frank Lloyd Wright said? The wisdom for life to just get more beautiful, not to become more difficult. So thank you so much, Ken, for joining us. That was wonderful information. Thank you, viewers, for watching, and we will see you next time on Where the Road Rises.